Welcome to 2 Cents Boxing, where we talk everything boxing. Make sure to punch that like and subscribe button. Seriously, hit it like it owes you money. Want to go the extra mile? Drop a super chat or donate to the Cash App, because who doesn't love supporting quality content? Catch me live every Friday at 6:30 p.m. and Sunday at 5 p.m. See you there.
Hi, welcome to the channel. I'm Jay, and this is our 2 Cents, where we talk everything boxing, and everybody's entitled to their own opinion. In today's video, we will be discussing Terence Crawford and his recent statements that he's made about Errol the True Spence Jr. not being a Hall of Famer. But before we do that, make sure you punch that like and subscribe button, and make sure you let me know and drop it below your 2 cents as I go throughout the video. So recently, Terence Crawford did an interview, and he came out and said that, Spence basically hasn't done much, and he's not going into the Hall of Fame. He's not a Hall of Famer. He didn't get, multiple championships in different weight classes, and this whatever criteria he had in his mind for being a Hall of Famer. And people came out and they had things to say about it, and I'm gonna throw in a clip of Mr. Greg kind of explaining, giving his 2 cents on why he feels like the public came out, and this is the backlash that Terence Crawford is receiving, and he himself is a Terence Crawford fan. So I'm gonna put that clip in here. Let me know what y'all think about the clip by dropping your 2 cents below as it's playing. Check it out.
Spence is a Hall of Fame fighter.
For sure.
He's a Hall of Fame fighter. Maybe. He took some of the biggest fights of his particular time and his particular division, and he won regardless of what he did outside of the ring. He won inside the ring. The first time he lost to Bud. Period. He still belongs in the Hall of Fame, and if he fights again and keeps winning again, that only solidifies it more. What Bud did is the same dumb stuff that I always say. The Bud sometimes has to shut up. You just have to shut up sometimes, even if that's what you believe and you're being honest, because there's something called being diplomatic. There's something called being humble. You let a man who gave you your biggest fight, who finally projected you into the heights that you are now, have that, because you wouldn't have been there had you not fought Spence. Period. You wouldn't have been there. And he always gives us. I'm not finished. Not finished. You wouldn't have been there. So what you do is show grace. You don't say he's nothing, he ain't ish, because that's how you got there, fighting somebody who ain't nothing, who ain't ish. And you don't do that to yourself, and you don't do that to the man who's responsible for you being there. That's where you have to show grace. That's where you got to show character and those kinds of things. And he failed to do that. And that was so stupid. Sometimes Bud, I like Bud as a fighter, but sometimes somebody has to be in his corner to tell him to shut up. Stop talking. You always put yourself in a position where somebody's going to start saying, wait a minute, well, you ain't fought nobody but Spence. It doesn't matter what you think. You can't always say what you think. Sometimes you have to just give grace. And I don't know why Bud did this. This is an example of knocking over the table, I guess, if you want to call it that. But it didn't do him any good to put down Spence. He knows Spence is beloved still. He knows he has a lot of issues with how people view him. So you don't give anybody the bat to beat over your head. Period. And that's what he's doing again, because he's only had one other fight since then, and that fight he didn't look really good. Unfortunate, but he didn't. So you don't turn around and talk about somebody like that. You say, you be gracious. You said this was the biggest fight so far I've had. I'm going to try to have another big fight, etc., etc. You don't bash somebody who's done that for you. I don't know why he did it, but in my opinion, it was a really stupid move. It shows that he still hasn't gotten media training. He hasn't learned how to be diplomatic. He hasn't learned how to position himself in front of the fans of what his character is. And that's what I got to say about that.
Shut up, Mr. Greg.
Now, when I heard that, first of all, this isn't the first time that I've heard Bud say that Errol Spence is not a Hall of Famer. It's not the first time I heard him say that. He said it right after the fight with Errol Spence in an interview. He was sitting in his car and he was saying how Errol Spence is not a Hall of Famer. Now, I think Bud might actually believe that. Maybe. I'm not sure if he really believe it or if he just trying to be captain. But I don't think the conversation really is if Earl is or isn't a Hall of Famer. Just to give my 2 cents, I would think he's a Hall of Famer. But people want to come out and say, oh, the Errol Spence fans are crying. What about when Earl said he had a 0.5 resume, or he was too small, or he was that and that? And so they want to bring up everything that Earl said when they was bantering. You know, the boxers was going back and forth with each other because that's what boxers do. They building a fight, they talking trash. They want to bring all those things up and try to make it seem like, oh, it's selective outrage, when I want to go on record and say there's no outrage. This is no outrage. We're just pointing out the fact that Bud is cooking himself. There's no outrage, because let's put it in reality and put it in perspective, right? I know all the Bud fans want to get emotional and say you disrespecting Bud when you want to talk about his resume, but we not. Let's talk about it. If Errol the True Spence Jr. ran through the division and collected all the belts that you gathered in one fight in one night, and a lot of people are saying Errol Spence Jr. is the best win on your resume, you discredited the best win on your resume. So now people are like, well, damn, bud. Well, what does that say about your resume then? And that's what I think people are missing when they want to be like, oh, the Errol Spence fans crying. We're not crying. Bud cooking himself. Nobody has to cry. Bud's entitled to his own opinion. If he doesn't believe that Errol the True Spence Jr. is a Hall of Famer, that's cool. He doesn't have to believe that. But the point that we're trying to get across is, if Errol Spence is not a Hall of Famer and he's the best win on your resume, he's not. Now, the night of the fight, I don't know what was going on with Earl. He had a terrible performance. Bud got in there. He did what he did. He beat Spence, whatever the case may be. He beat him. But we're talking about just period, the run he made, the resume that he has, the people that he's fought and beat. That's what makes Errol Spence, Bud Crawford's best win on his resume. We're not going by just that night of the fight. So for Terence Crawford to be like, oh, no, he ain't nothing. What does that say about the rest of your resume, especially at 47? Especially at 47. And instead of the Terence Crawford fans realizing that he's cooking himself, they want to hate on Errol the True Spence Jr. so bad that they not acknowledging the fact that Terence Crawford is cutting off his nose and spiting his face because he wants to try to diminish Errol Spence so bad. I don't understand why he's doing that. And then you want to run down his resume and say, oh, well, when he fought Kell Brook was a damaged fighter. Well, you fought Kell Brook after Earl. So what was he when you fought him? Hello? Jose Benavidez was a damaged fighter when you fought him. He fought you with a knee brace on because he had been shot in the leg. Sean Porter had been out of the ring 455 plus days and was podcast Porter, coming off hip surgery and all other kind of stuff when you fought him. And Errol Spence, ones could argue, was a damaged fighter when you fought him yet again. Like, it's just your MO. And so, now people out here trying to have this GOAT debate, and if you one of the greatest of all times, when I don't even understand why that's even a conversation. Like, I don't even understand why we even conversating about that. Like, why is that even in your consciousness? I don't care who Terence Crawford beats in this era, he's not going to be a top 3 greatest of all times. He wasn't ever trying to be great. Trying to stack and collect accolades is not trying to be great. And I think that that's the disconnect, that a lot of people think the accolades have more weight than they really do, not understanding how political the rankings and the accolades, and you with this promotional company, so you got access to these belts. People don't want to acknowledge how a lot of that plays a part. And somebody told me today, well, you know, I had a mini debate with somebody that I fried today on the panel. And he told me, well, you know, if Errol Spence would have beat Terence Crawford, then went on to beat Madrimov, and then went on to beat Canelo, y'all will be saying he's the best F ever. And I said, absolutely. That ain't the same run as Terence Crawford. That means Errol Spence would have beat 4 champions at 147 pounds. He would have went up and beat another champion at 154 pounds. And then he would have went up to 168 pounds and beat the undisputed champion there, all after a car accident where he almost lost his life, where he came back 18 months later, returned back to the ring, and started fighting again. Yes, one of the best to ever do it. One of the greatest ever. Now, I'm not saying he's going to be top 3 between Ali, Sugar Ray Leonard, and Errol Spence. No, I still don't think that he would be, you know what I'm saying, ranked that high or nothing like that. But he would, even if he did that, he would still be respected more than Terence Crawford because he did more. Terence Crawford grab a belt, let somebody else collect them, and then go have an undisputed fight. It's a difference between an undisputed fight and an undisputed run. Terence Crawford not having no undisputed runs. He's having undisputed fights, and that's cool. I'm not taking anything away from him. I'm just saying that there's a difference. There's a difference. All undisputed ain't handled the same. Charlo got his undisputed out the mud. Usyk got his undisputed out the mud. Clarissa Shields, she going around snatching her undisputeds out the mud. She not just having no one fight. Usyk not just having no one fight and he undisputed. And I don't want to make this video too long, because go check out my last live stream if you want to hear, you know, me cook more on this topic, because we talk about it on there. But I really want to make this video just to point it out, and I wanted to get more people involved in the conversation, and I want to get your 2 cents about it, because there's a lot of people, you know, they on either side of the coin with this conversation. And the biggest disconnect that I'm noticing between the people that's on the opposite side of the conversation is the weight and the validity that they put on the accolades. But let me know what you think by watching your 2 cents below in the comments. Follow me on IG at 2 cents boxing. Follow me on X at 2 cents 20, or you can give me a call. Wait for the number at 281-845-2103 and give me your 2 cents. Make sure to click on this live right here in this video where we go in more depth about this topic. I'm Jay, and stay tuned for my 2 cents in the next video.